Yo, what's going on? Fellow madmen and madwomen and mad days and thems. Um, this video is going to be a new type of thing for this channel. It's basically just an experiment I'm doing. I was inspired because Rendy, one of my favorite RuneScape streamers, has started doing something similar on an alternate channel he has, where he just stream of consciousness rants and sort of does like a vlog or a virtual diary thing, which I think can be very useful. It can have a lot of benefits for mental health, but also, you know, hopefully or maybe you can entertain a few people while you do it. And of course, these days, anything you can turn into entertainment makes that thing better. It's automatically better if you can turn it into entertainment. I know I sound cynical when I say that. I'm being halfway cynical. I do think there's some value to that. I think entertaining stuff spreads faster, and if your message is a good message and you want it to spread, then if it's entertaining, I mean, that's, you know, it's just going to benefit it more. But I want to talk for a little bit in this video about the whole podcasting trend, the whole thing, the whole like phenomenon of everyone having their own basically everybody has their own TV channel for free these days, which is kind of nuts. If you told someone in 1960 that everybody would have their own TV channel and it would cost them nothing to set up, or almost nothing, other than time, they'd think you were nuts. And I think Rendy said it was called like a solo cast. That's what you youngins, you Zoomers are calling this type of shit. I just call it schizophrenic rambling. That's what I call it. I'm just kidding. Anyway, this whole trend, if it is even a trend, or if the whole solo cast thing is a brand new label, it's not a new idea, but calling it that is definitely something new. I think it has a lot of potential to be a good thing for a lot of people. I think people need to feel like they're being listened to by somebody at some point, when they're actually saying what they think off the top of their head. They're actually speaking their mind, and they're not filtering it through any sort of social expectations or, you know, any sort of restrictions on speech. And there's always restrictions on speech in every society. I mean, even the States. Like, you can't, you know, can't accuse someone of something they haven't done. You can't defame a person. That's why you have libel laws. So, you know, no speech is ever 100% free, but you want it, the point is you want it to be as close to 100% as possible. You don't want to put unnecessary restrictions on it, because it just makes people go underground and, you know, think the same thoughts and say the same things in closed circles. But I want to talk about this whole trend, or this whole idea, because there's a lot of different opinions floating around about it that I've been reading about for years, and there's ancient philosophers who've talked about it, there's contemporary philosophers who've talked about it, there's random assholes like me who are talking about it, and then there's popular media figures and celebrities who are talking about it, and everybody's got, you know, their own opinion on it, which is good. I think that's a good thing. I think the more opinions we have, the better. I mean, I'm a journalist. My name's Spider Jerusalem. You can tell by the glasses, which I'm probably going to take off because it's actually fucking annoying to look at a computer monitor with these fucking things on. You know, I did a previous video where I wore these, where I was reacting to something Sam Hyde did, and the first like half of that I think is okay, turned out okay. Can anybody else raise one eyebrow without raising the other? Can you guys do that? That's the mark of true genius, if you can raise one eyebrow without raising the other. So we're gonna lose the glasses. Plus they're scuffed as fuck. I bought 2 different pairs of glasses off of Amazon from some Chinese company, and I tried to like weld or glue them together, and no glue I used worked. So I just fucking wrapped a bunch of like like twist ties around them, and those are my Spider Jerusalem glasses. They're a piece of shit. And I would love to get a legit pair of them, or to make them for real at some point. But who knows? Maybe we'll do that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this whole phenomenon of podcasts and vlogging, because there's a lot of different perspectives on it. The most sort of negative and paranoid perspective on it would be the trend. It arose organically, but it's now being sort of co-opted or used as a way to gather information on people, which every society has to do to some extent. There has to be some degree of surveillance in any society, and whether that surveillance takes the form of like encouraging people to voice their opinions so you know what they're thinking, or just shoving cameras up their ass. Like, every society has to do that, because if you don't know what your population wants, and you don't know what they hate, and you don't know what they're afraid of, then you can't build a good society. So unfortunately, every society has to have some degree or some level of understanding what its citizens think. And sometimes when it's too invasive, we call it surveillance. And I do think that that's overall a negative thing. I think shoving cameras up people's assholes, or putting 500 cameras on the street, all that does is it makes people hyper aware that they're being watched. And when people know they're being watched, they perform for the cameras. There's an episode of Eon Flux about this. The more surveillance there is, the more disingenuous people's actions become. What's interesting about how the West is handling this issue, by sort of encouraging, and it's not the whole country, it's just certain groups, it's tech companies, shit like that. This type of confessional shit that I'm doing is being encouraged because it's useful for companies to sell you things. That's number one. Number two, it's useful, and I want to say that clearly. The first reason is to sell you shit. The second reason is to gather data, which can also be sold. But the sort of intelligence security shit is secondary to the profit-based reason for this. And again, that's probably been true of every society in human history to some extent. I mean, the tribal chieftains and shamans who wanted their cave-dwelling underlings to come to them and talk about the dreams they had or the fears they have. That's the origin of it. It's just the people in charge need to understand what the fuck is going on, A, so they can stay in charge, and B, so that the society can remain socially cohesive. Because whether they're an evil tyrant or a benevolent ruler, it's the same issue. If you don't know what your population wants or is thinking, if they haven't been encouraged to tell you that, then you have no way of structuring a society based upon any sort of shared vision of values, or any sort of hierarchy of necessities or needs, or even just wants. I should have said wants, not needs. But my point with this whole rant is that's one way of interpreting this whole trend of like, vomiting your thoughts onto the internet is, well, you're in theory contributing to some kind of collective unconscious, or some facsimile of the collective unconscious, filtered through digital media, that is ultimately, hopefully, going to provide a better insight into what people's shared values are in a particular culture, or even globally. But of course, the negative view of that is, well, they just want to sell your data so they can sell you more crap, or they just want to know what weird interests you have that they can blackmail you with, whoever they are. There's no they. There's no like unified evil. I don't know, like the fuck is the name of that group? There's the Justice League, and then there's the League of Villains. I'm just going to use the example from Venture Brothers. There's no guild of calamitous intent. They don't exist. There's a bunch of competing interests that are all over the D&D spectrum of morality. It's a chaotic mess. And unfortunately, both the good and the evil and the neutral and even the chaotic ones are all trying to grapple for some version of purchase on information. And that's how it's always been. This is not a new thing, but But in the language of our times, using those metaphors I just used, that's the way to describe it if you want to reach people and explain to them how the world works. It's just a bunch of competing interest groups. It's tribalism by another name. It's tribalism on a bunch of different levels operating all at once. That's humanity. That's a human thing. But this trend of being confessional like I'm trying to be right now, with my little butt chin. You like that? I'm lucky to have the butt chin. Apparently that's a sexy thing. I never understood why that was considered sexy. I don't understand. It's symmetrical. There's a line. It goes right down to here. It's eugenics. It's ancient eugenics in practice. Anyway. That's one interpretation, is the information gathering type of interpretation, which has, again, a spectrum of morality to it, and it has potential good aspects to it because every society has to do it. The most free anarchist society ever would still have to practice some form of this, because if they didn't, their society would not continue to exist, because the people in charge would lose touch with what the citizens or the constituents of the society actually want. And that's never a good thing. It doesn't matter what your moral alignment is as a ruler. If you lose touch with what your population wants, needs, fears, and hates, your society's fucked royally. So that's one interpretation. The second interpretation of this is it's all about egoism. It's just people want to be listened to and heard at any cost. We all have some version of some sort of attachment disorder. Nobody escapes it. Everybody has some sort of event in their life that they're trying to cope with or compensate for. The only people who don't, I guess, are the Buddhist monks who have no attachments because they've been up on the mountain meditating and listening to bells and eating nothing but gruel until they've shat out all the good bacteria in their guts, and they're basically just Buddhist zombies. And all they can do is listen to bells all day and probably do some things with their monk buddies in the evenings that the religion doesn't really specify, if I had to guess. And that's been going on in monasteries forever. So that's neither here nor there. But in any case, there's the ego side of things. So unless you're a monk, in which case you're probably not watching this. Although, to go off on a brief tangent, I did see a monk with a cell phone one time when I was in Sri Lanka. I traveled around a lot as a kid. And I saw this monk literally walk out of a temple, and he got into a fucking, like a Honda, like a Civic or something, and he fucking had a cell phone. And I was like, that's the most 21st century shit I've ever seen. That's why I have the Spider Jerusalem glasses, guys, because that's the timeline we're on. We're on the Spider Jerusalem timeline. If you don't like how society works, hey, guess what? In a couple decades, there's going to be something called a reservation just for you. And it's not an animal reserve, it's a human reserve. If you want to behave like a ancient Aztec and cut people's hearts out every day, there's going to be a place where you can do that. It might be virtual at first, or it might be just virtual, period. But in that series of graphic novels, those types of echo chambers or chat room-like spaces, those little sort of microcultures, there's all sorts of buzzwords you can use. Basically, it's a sort of containment zone for a particular social practice that's shared by enough people that broader globalist society has deemed them interesting enough that they warrant their own petri dish. They warrant their own little space to fuck around in, as long as they agree to be surveilled. That's goes back to my first point about what I'm doing right now. But anyway, the ego thing. People have always wanted to be heard, and that goes back to fucking the Lascaux caves in France with people blowing red ochre or whatever that was and making handprints on the walls. No conscious entity does that unless they want someone to see it eventually. there's a point from the movie The Burnt Orange Heresy, which I did review on this channel, and you should watch it and like and subscribe. But there's a viewpoint in that film that's espoused by a cynical artist, and he says, well, they put those paintings in those caves because they didn't want anybody to see them. They didn't think human eyes were worthy. That's a very cynical, sort of neat, shut-in, kind of incel-ish kind of take. It's cynical, but it also checks all those other boxes. And the artist in that movie, his character, the way his character's written, it makes sense that he would have that opinion. His foil in that movie is another character who says, no, art should be shared with everybody. Everybody should see everything. And then the irony is, at the end of that movie, people see a little more of him than he wanted them to see. He wasn't prepared for it. But anyway. My point is just there's an ego desire to be heard, to persist, to somehow trick death into allowing a small fragment of you to live on. The truth is that the best way to mitigate that fear of being forgotten is to just be a good person in your life and do good things for people around you. No one's ever going to remember you forever, but the most important aspect of being remembered is being remembered by your immediate descendants. It's not enshrining yourself like a fucking pharaoh. Because we know those pharaohs' names and we know what they did, but we remember them like characters in a video game rather than remembering them as human beings. It's very difficult for a person to be remembered as a human being in a human-centric way that takes into account their emotions and their flaws and actually has some sort of means of generating sympathy among the people who remember that person. In order to have somebody sympathetically remember you as a human being, you have to be somebody who did some decent, humane, good things in your life. Even if they're small deeds. It doesn't really matter. You can be a nihilist and you know, succumb to the sort of atheistic or agnostic take that nothing matters. I think if nothing mattered, matter wouldn't exist. Like, we wouldn't be here if nothing mattered. Think about the phrase, nothing matters. Well, there is matter. This is some matter right here. This is some matter right here. I just grabbed my dick like, this is some matter right here, baby! Yeah! No, you know what I mean. I just think that the whole egotistical desire to be remembered, that's another component of why this format is so popular, because it's not just a diary entry that you write down and then nobody reads it for 80 years until long after you're dead. It's not just a speech you make that's ephemeral. There's a sense that because all this shit is being recorded and archived, somehow it's going to last forever. Now that may not be true. You know, all it takes is one solar flare and this is all gone, you know. That was a shitty snap. There, Thanos would have been just disgusted that I couldn't snap right the first time. It took me 2 tries. Anyway, again, the point I'm trying to make with all this is just that's the second way of viewing this sort of phenomenon of vlogging. You know, people wanting to be remembered, people wanting to feel like they matter. And I don't necessarily think it's like egomaniacs or freaks. The people who are egomaniacs are like celebrities, actors, CEOs, like those types of people whose ego drives them so goddamn hard that they could never make a video like this that's off the cuff. I'm saying I'm better than them for being genuine. Which isn't true. That's my own ego talking, right? Proves my point. But it's not about egomania. It's just that we all have egos. It's just part of being human. Now, the third reason for this trend is the whole microbrand thing, which I think is another interesting phenomenon that has come about while I've been alive. It wasn't a thing when I was younger to the same extent that it is now. It was a thing, but it wasn't as ubiquitous, and it wasn't as subjective. Like anybody can turn their life into a voyeuristic. Well, that's my fourth point. Sorry, I'm mixing points, guys. Voyeur is the fourth point. Anybody can turn their life into a brand, and I mean every aspect of it. Your day-to-day shit. Literally, you take a shit, you could turn it into a image on a T-shirt, and people will buy it, which to me is insane. And to an extent, that's always been true. Memes have always existed before we called them memes and before computers were a thing. But my God, the level of like saturation of the culture with it now is I don't think it's good or bad, but it's flabbergasting to me. Like I feel like I'm an old man yelling at a cloud. It's like this shit is insane how fast it's going and how weird it is. Um, it's just wild to me, and it gets wilder every fucking year. But my point is, the third reason is the microbranding thing, which is a monetary thing. It's people who've realized they can make money off of their personality, off of the way they speak, off of the random signals firing off in their brains, like what I'm doing right now. If you improvise in front of a camera, it's no longer just a form of behavior that is something you would only do at like an improv class or at a club or in a specific situation. Now you can broadcast it to anybody, anywhere. And that's cool. I think that opens up a lot of opportunities, but it's also kind of just disorienting. It's like that Squidward gif where he's going future, future. Like that's how I feel a lot of the time. And I'm only in my early 30s. I'm not that old. Well, no, I am. Most of you watching this would probably say I'm old. If any of you are watching it, I don't care. I don't care who's watching this. It's going on the epic hard drive that will totally last a million years and won't be erased 5 years from now. This will totally be archived in the secret center of the earth underground server, and it will never be deleted. It'll be copied a billion times. It'll become the basis of a new religion, like that novel Canticle for Leibowitz, where a guy's grocery list becomes like a religious artifact in the future. That shit is great. If you haven't read A Canticle for Leibowitz, read that shit. It's good. It's an old sci-fi novel, so you probably won't be able to stomach it, but read the synopsis on Wikipedia. That's easy. Anyway, that's the third, I think, aspect of this trend that's driving it is the microbrand thing, selling merch, which again, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying anybody doing it is being evil or bad or whatever. It's just a thing. It's like, good for you, man. It's your hustle. Good for you, woman. Go to it. Anyway, the fourth aspect that I almost talked about a second ago, but I'm going to talk about it now, is the voyeuristic aspect. There's a kind of and voyeurism is a sexual fetish as well, but I think it's also just a human thing. Tool wrote a song about it in 2006 called Vicarious, which is just about how television is an inherently voyeuristic thing. Spoiler alert, reading someone's writing is voyeuristic. Reading a novel someone wrote, even if it's fiction, you're voyeuristically peering into their brain. You're like an illithid from D&D, and you're feeding on their thoughts that they bound in squid ink runes on a page. And we all do this. No one's immune to this. We all do it in some way, or shape, or form. My point is just the vlogging thing and the podcasting thing and the solo casting thing, if that's even a thing. It probably is now. If I'm saying it, it means it's already a fucking thing. If Randy said it and I'm saying it, that's two people, In a year, it'll be a whole genre. Spotify will have, a year or two from now, an entire category for solo casts. One guy rambling about nonsense. It's like having your ear against the door in Arkham Asylum listening to the Joker. That's what this shit is like. If there's a market for it, it will exist. It will be labeled and categorized. Which on one level is depressing to me. There's a great quote from a poet named Khalil Gibran who said, "When someone understands too much about you, it's like they're possessing your soul. If someone understands you totally, if they understand every aspect of your psyche and everything about you, it's like there's no mystery left. It's kind of like when a woman and a man are dating, and the guy wears his heart on his sleeve too much. He tells his partner too much too fast, or two gay guys or two lesbians, whoever. If you overshare, there's no mystery left. The other person doesn't feel like they have a cool Rubik's Cube to solve in terms of getting to know you over the course of the span of the relationship. And I feel like the voyeurism aspect of modern day internet dialogue, and specifically of like podcasts and solo casts and whatever, it shares too much of yourself with too many people all at once. And that's why I'm glad that my channel's small and YouTube is suppressing it for whatever reason. There's a bunch of reasons that could happen, but I don't really care why it's happening. I'm just glad I don't have 10 billion followers, because I would hate that. I'd probably delete my channel. You know, the pressure of having to morph myself to please people, or to have to resist that impulse, rather, would be hell. And the fucked up thing is, even if I resisted it, that would probably just make certain people even more dogged in their following of me. It would make people like, oh, this guy's awesome. He's such a rebel. He resists the urge to be popular. That means I'm going to keep watching him. Like, that's the hell of other people. If you want to be popular and you try too hard, people think you're a tryhard and they distance themselves from you. And if you don't want to be popular, people find that attractive. I learned this when I was younger, and I didn't know who I was. I still don't, but I know more who I am now than I used to, which I guess is a good thing. But when I was younger, I was totally clueless about like most guys are, like women being attracted to me. Again, I'm using the courtship metaphor again. It's useful. And I sort of was just, I had blinders on, I had my ears plugged. I was wearing a COVID mask 20 years before it was cool. And basically I was ignorant of a lot of common social cues that most people would, even at the age I was at, have at least had an inkling about. I was completely ignorant of them, probably because of some form of autism or whatever. I'm not officially diagnosed. I took 2 tests, and they both came back with like, well, you have some symptoms of autism, but not enough for us to want to sell you medication. So I was like, all right, this is better medication than any fucking thing that I've ever put in my body, straight up. If it kills me, I don't give a shit. This is water, by the way. I'm talking about water. This is just water. Delicious water. Anyway, the voyeur thing. It's a sexual thing, yes, but in the context I'm talking about, it's just living vicariously through other people, which I do all the time. Whenever I watch a video on YouTube, I do this. Whenever I read a book, I do it. Whenever I look at a painting, I do it, because you're seeing into another person's way of seeing the world. You're sharing your perception with somebody else. And that can be a very good thing. But the issue is when it's a constant barrage of different people wanting you to share their vision all at once. It becomes this this nightmare of noise. And there's another quote I'm reminded of. I forget who said it. It was some contemporary philosopher. He said, in the past, power was based on your ability to gather information and know more and store that information. Nowadays, power is being able to filter out what isn't relevant. And to some extent, again, I think that's always been true. I think, trying to learn everything all at once. That's like, it's like Faust on crack. Like, nobody who's tried to do that has ever succeeded. You can't know everything. You always have to have some focus, and you always have to filter things out. But nowadays, it's more important because I think it's the pervasiveness of the medium that I'm currently participating in, and my webcam is currently fucking glitching out like a piece of shit. Oh, for fuck's sake. This is intentional, guys. I edited this into the video to be avant-garde. This is actually a bit. That was all edited by me. I'm a very good editor. I know video editing. I've devoted 10 plus years to being able to create the effect you just saw, if there was an effect. Pretty sure there was. Anyway, that's the fourth aspect, I think, is this voyeuristic thing. So we have surveillance, we have ego, we have microbranding and self whoring, corporate whoring, and then we have voyeurism. The fifth aspect of this type of medium that I think is the best aspect is the communal sharing of struggle. It's the aspect of the shared experience of human existence that makes all four of the other interpretations kind of not matter. Because even if this fifth aspect is true, then the other four don't matter. The other four are not sufficiently negative or could not be interpreted as being sufficiently negative to negate the value of this fifth one. If something somebody says to you even slightly changes the course of your life or motivates you or uplifts you in a moment of despair or causes you to make a different choice and avoid hell, then any other aspect of the medium that message came through in or on doesn't matter, because the effect of that, the good effect of that, is worth all the other fucking baggage of that medium. If the medium is new and weird like the internet is, it's still very new to humanity. The internet's only been around for like fucking 40 years at most. That's a microscopic amount of time. I mean, this shit is not something we're used to. It's driving us literally insane. Girls are unaliving themselves, which I fucking loathe that new speak term. It's new age too. New age speak. I hate it. Just call it what it is. Stop hiding behind language. Language is everywhere. It will always be here. It's always mutating, yes. When you try to force it to mutate in a way that serves your creepy interests, it will mutate back at you, and you won't like the results. Language always wins. Okay? Anyway, my point is just, if there's any grain of goodness, that grain of goodness, that good vibe, that good influence, it's like a bell ringing in the midst of a battle where there's men screaming and women being non-consensually accessed and infants being thrown against walls and spears going through people's guts. All that cacophony of sound, it's happening during a thunderstorm. There's noise everywhere, but a single bell ringing, it negates that. That's the metaphor I'll use. It doesn't negate it, but it overcomes it. It rises above it. The evil is still there. The shallow and potentially nefarious interpretations of this format are still there. But that's, again, it's been true of everything in human history. There's always been competing interest groups that have vied over a particular format or a particular form of new media. And the same thing happened when the printing press was fucking invented. The same thing happened when people started using cuneiform on stone tablets. I'm sure there was some asshole who was like, I'm going to be the stone tablet guy and monopolize the industry. I bought up all the clay mines around Ur, and now no one can manufacture clay but me. Ah ha ha! Now I'm the master of knowledge. I have all the clay. All the shit is mine. I'm sure somebody tried that at some point. Or, you know, anyway, it's... My point is just, look, I think that this medium has some potential to be good, and that's why I'm making this video, because in the past I've been more cynical about it, and this video is in part meant to convince me to keep doing this, because I think I might be able to have some fun, at least trying it out, making a few videos, whatever. I don't expect it to make me money. In fact, I don't want it to, because I don't want it to. I don't want financial interest to pollute my my rawness. Ooh, I don't want it to change my mind. I don't want any group watching this to influence how I would create what I'm making, even if it's crap. I don't care. It's my crap. It's direct out of my brain to you. So, again, that's pretty much why I wanted to make this video. I just wanted to sort of riff and rant about that. Rant about what I'm actually doing while doing it. Very meta. Anyway, I'm not even sure if I'll upload this, but I'm gonna try to force myself to do it. People seeing my face, that doesn't matter. If you can dox me from just seeing my face, I mean, I'm already fucked. I don't care. Yeah. It's whatever, yo. By the way, shout out to Sam Hyde. This is his hoodie. It's one of the funniest, or his beanie, excuse me. It's one of the funniest fucking beanie designs. In fact, I think it's the funniest one. I love how the letters almost look like a crown, too. Like, they're very, like, vertical. The sans serif cleanliness of them makes them look like sort of spikes of a crown or something. It's just good. It's good design. But he's a graphic designer. Shout out to Sam. I know I uploaded a video of me reacting to you, and then I took it down. It's because it sucked. I'll either remake it or I'll cut the first like hour and a half of it that was actually good, and then I'll just, I don't know, leave it at that or remake it. Whatever. It's my channel. If I want to delete something, boom, it's gone. Anyway, guys, that's about all I have to say for this episode of MADCAST, which is, I think, what I'm going to call this. I didn't want to make a separate channel for this, so I'm just going to make a playlist, so deal with it. Hope you're all doing well in your lives. Hope your hustles are going well. Hope your loved ones are doing well, and your friends are doing well. Hope you have friends. If you don't, make some. Don't eat too many carbs and sugars. And, stay chill. That having been said, guys, as always, peace out.